Hello, Divorce and Beyond family. I've got some exciting news because we have teamed up with Headspace to guide you toward better mental health. With Headspace's meditation, mindfulness tools, and mental health support, you're set for a journey to a happier, healthier you. And there's more because if you sign up through our exclusive link, you'll enjoy 2 weeks of Headspace membership for free. So don't miss out on this opportunity to embrace your well-being. You can check out the show notes for the link or just go to divorcebeyond.com/headspace-Susan. And you'll be able to start your path to peace and joy today. This is just one more way that we can support you on your journey to a better beyond.
Coming up on today's episode of the Divorce and Beyond podcast.
Divorce is not a DIY project. The first decision you make, which is who you're going to call, can shape everything that comes next. So think and choose carefully. Hello, and welcome to the Divorce and Beyond podcast. I'm Susan Guthrie, your host. As a top divorce attorney and family law mediator for 30 years, I know what you need to know to get through your divorce, and most importantly, how to move beyond it to thrive and transition to your new future. My experts and I are here to give you the insider view into the process, so listen in for the wisdom and expert information you need on your journey through divorce and beyond. Hello, listeners, and welcome back to Divorce and Beyond. I'm Susan Guthrie, your host, and today we're going to do a solo episode, and I'm going to talk about something that I've been noticing quite a bit lately. So even though I don't practice family law anymore, after 30 plus years of being a family law attorney and mediator, I still have so many people who reach out to me all the time looking for advice, looking for information when they have either decided they want to get divorced or when they've been informed that divorce is in their future. And there's been a big bump in that lately, which is unusual. I will say divorce tends to go in a couple of cycles. We know that routinely around about the beginning of the year, January sees a spike at the beginning of the year of people reaching out for divorce information and people thinking, yes, divorce is going to be in my future. Then we sort of slides down the hill again. We see a lot of filings in March. Those are usually the people who reached out for information in January. And then, as we get into the summer, it gets very quiet. But toward the end of summer, we start to see a spike in outreach again. I've always attributed that to the end of the summer and the beginning of the next school year, where parents are thinking, okay, summer's done. It's time for me to get started. But no matter when people make that decision that it's time to get divorced, the number one question they have when they reach out is, what do I do first when I find out I'm getting divorced? And again, that could be if you've been the one who's decided to get divorced or if your spouse has told you they want a divorce. So that's what I'll focus on in today's episode. I'm calling it Divorce Triage because, as with most things legal, or one aspect of a divorce is legal, but with most things in this area, the answer is truly, it depends. Right? It depends on your circumstances. So if you are sitting out there today, or you have a friend or a family member who is in those first days of the reality of divorce, then this episode's for you. And it could be, someone who's just discovered that their spouse was having an affair. It could be that, after however many years of marriage, your partner out of the blue has dropped the divorce bomb that they want out. Or maybe you've been sitting doing the should I stay or should I go for years, but at this point in time, you've made the decision to make that move. So lately, really in the past just 2 weeks, I've had people from each one of those scenarios. One of them found out about their spouse's hidden credit card debt. And I don't mean just a little bit of debt. Sadly, I mean thousands and thousands of dollars of credit card debt that had been run up. And these were both in joint credit cards. And in this particular case, in cards that the spouse had taken out in their other spouse's name. And that is something that we do see in certain circumstances when people are feeling desperate enough to get money. The one time I had it, or a couple of times in the past where I've had it, it was also tied into addiction. So when somebody is in the throes of an addiction and they need money to fund that addiction, sometimes they will do, certainly we see a lot of run-up of debt, but sometimes they will do things that they shouldn't be doing, such as taking out credit card names or draining accounts in order to fund that. So that was one of the calls that I got recently. Another one was a stay-at-home parent who was completely blindsided, in fact, thought that everything was fine. And I believe them. They really found it to be completely a shock when their spouse asked for a divorce. The other was, made the decision that it was time to end in a marriage that had been fading for years. I think they both knew that, but one of them finally needed to make that decision. And in this case, the person who called can. Again, whether you're one of these people or whether your situation is different, the thing is, every single one of you going through divorce are going to ask this question first. Who's my first call? If you don't have a Susan out there to call, who is the first call? Do I call a lawyer? That's what most people think the answer is. But do I need a therapist? Do I need to talk to someone because, my God, my emotions are all over the place? Do I call a mediator right away so that we can keep this from going down the litigation route? Should I call a financial advisor? There's all different kinds of things, and that's what we'll call that divorce triage. So this episode's for you folks if you're in that stage. So what do I mean by divorce triage? Well, triage is a term I've borrowed from the emergency room. If you've ever been there, you know that when you first come in, you meet with a triage nurse usually, or a triage personnel who's going to assess and prioritize your case based on urgency. It's actually a good thing if you end up sitting and waiting in the emergency room for a while, because it means that your case is not urgent. If they whip you into an exam room and doctors come running like you see on TV, that's usually a bad sign about your health. But that's the same thing that I need for you to do when you're facing divorce. You need to assess your situation and prioritize who you reach out to based on the urgency and the needs in your particular case. So when a crisis hits, whether it's emotional, legal, or financial, you do not need to solve the whole thing at once. You just need to take the right first step. So take a deep breath and think about that, because people often feel very panicky in this phase. Again, just like when you're rushing into that emergency room, you just need to take the right first step. So think of this like a trauma response. You want to stop the bleeding, you want to stabilize the patient, and then you begin long-term treatment. So today we're going to walk through how to do that for your divorce, how to figure out who you call first, and as you move along, how to build the team that will carry you through this chapter of your life with strength and strategy. So let's talk about the divorce support team. I'll start with a who's who, a big picture. These will be the core players that you might need on your team. And part of what you need to do is assess who you need. Generally, the captain of the team is the attorney. I want you to understand, though, that unless they are an attorney with additional special skills, the attorney is there to handle the legal aspects of your case. All divorces, because marriage is a legal status, and so to unravel or terminate that legal status, you need to go through a legal process. It's called a divorce in some states. It's called a dissolution of marriage in other states, but it's all the same thing. It's a legal process that is set out with all of the hoops you need to jump through and the things you need to do in order to get to the point where the law will say, okay, we're going to dissolve this legal relationship, or we're going to end this legal relationship. The attorney's there to advise you on your rights, your obligations, and what the law is in your state and how those things apply in your case. They can also give you legal advice, things along the lines of, here are your options. You may want to consider this over this. Or in my experience, this may be better for you than that. All right. So that's who the attorney is. You then will have, hopefully, if you're going through an uncontested or you want to have an out-of-court divorce, you may have a mediator. That is, if you're hoping for a cooperative out-of-court process, a mediator is there to help both you and your spouse to reach agreements. They aren't there to advise you. Remember, the attorney's the one who's there to give you legal advice. There will be other people who can give you other kinds of advice. The mediator is not an advice giver. That's the number one thing you need to know about them. They are neutral. They are aneutral. They are not aligned with you. They are not aligned with your spouse. They're there to help the two of you have the difficult conversations that you need to have to get through those hoops that I just talked about in order to come to all the agreements and check all the boxes that the law requires that you need to do in order to get divorced in your state. The attorney can work alongside a mediator to be giving that legal advice on your rights, your obligations, and the law in your state, right? So they work together, but the mediator is guiding both of you. Another key player, and if you've listened to my podcast and all of the 370 plus episodes that we have out there, I say this often. The next person is one of the first people to consider hiring, and that is a divorce coach. You should think of this person as your emotional and strategic thinking partner. Your divorce coach is there to help you stay grounded, make informed decisions, and manage communication with your spouse. Okay, this is a really key, critical role because I want you to, if you're out there listening to this episode and you are in that, what's the first thing that I do about divorce, or even the early days of your divorce, I can almost guarantee that your emotions are all over the place, right? They are jumping around. You're upset, you're sad, you're scared, you're angry, and you might be all of those things in the space of 5 minutes. And that is normal, very normal. It is a difficult process. There's a lot going on and a lot at stake. Here's the problem. When you need to make all of these important decisions that you're going to move through in the divorce, all those boxes that I said you need to check, you don't want to make them as you're jumping around between emotions. You want to make them when you are able to control those emotions, and you want to think about how you're putting all of those agreements together in a strategic way. And that is what your divorce coach is there to help you with. A good, certified, well-trained divorce coach is one of your key players in the divorce. But you may also want to have a therapist. I've mentioned that the divorce coach is there to help you with your emotional balance, but a therapist can be there to help with you as your emotional support system, which is especially important if you are navigating trauma, betrayal, or if you just need help staying centered beyond, say, maybe that initial emotional explosion at the beginning of the divorce. I always say that if you are unpacking more than the average person, if this is bringing up trauma bonds, if you have been betrayed, as the people that I mentioned at the top of this episode, your spouse ran out and ran up a bunch of debt. They had an affair on you. They've lied to you. They've tried to turn your children against you, whatever these things are. Understand that that type of betrayal of trust, you may need to work on that with a therapist, with someone who is trained in helping you. And it's better to start with that therapist during your divorce process, again, because you don't get to say, I want to put a pause on making decisions right now so I can get myself pulled together and then I'll make these decisions. No. Unfortunately, the process continues to roll, whether you're ready to deal with it or not. And that's one of the things that happens in divorce, right? When the paperwork gets filed or when the process gets started, a third entity, which is the state that you live in and the legal system in which you are getting divorced, takes some control over your case and starts telling you that there's a timeline that you've got to start paying attention to. So a therapist can be a really critical, key player in your divorce team. And then last, but certainly not least, and I truly mean this, you very likely, if you have any financial issues, I always suggest having a financial advisor or a certified divorce financial analyst, a CDFA. This is critical if money is a stressor or an issue. And that's whether you have a lot of money or complicated finances or very little money. People don't understand that, but the less money you have, the more important it is that you have some advice on saving as much and protecting as much as possible and budgeting for the future. They are going to help you understand your financial landscape now and prepare for your post-divorce future. So some people will need all of these professionals. Others may only need 2 or 3 of these professionals. I'll be honest with you, it's rare that someone will need only one of these professionals. It's really a rather archaic way to go through divorce, just hiring a divorce attorney. A very simple divorce can probably proceed that way. That doesn't mean that it's proceeding the best way for everyone involved. If you only have one professional involved, then you're only able to pay attention to the aspect that's under their purview. And if it's only the attorney, then all you're really doing is checking the legal boxes. You're going to make those decisions. You're going to figure out your finances. You're going to do it all without the strategy and support and the financial advice and the emotional support of the other team members, the divorce coach, the financial advisor, and the therapist. So who do you call first? Let's take a little minute to talk about something special. If you follow me on Instagram, you all know how much I love my evil eye pendant. I love I have my bracelet. I have the pendant that goes around my neck. I wear evil eyes all the time. And so many of you have reached out asking where I got them. I'm thrilled to share with you all, drum roll please, that my favorite jewelry source, Yumi You Jewelry, is now a sponsor of Divorce and Beyond. For me, Yumi Yu jewelry is more than just jewelry. The symbols are symbols of strength, individuality, and empowerment. And they handcraft each piece with love and care. And so they are designed to help women stand out and embrace our unique personalities. So whether it's an evil eye, like I have chosen for protection, a hamsa for faith, or any other meaningful symbol, their pieces offer beauty and inspiration even during these tough times like divorce. So here's the best part. Yumi Yu is giving my listeners an exclusive discount if you use the code BEYOND, that's BEYOND, all caps, at checkout. You'll get 20% off your order. 20%. So if you're looking for a meaningful piece to keep you inspired or to protect you during this difficult time, visit divorcebeyond.com/YumiYu. That's YUMIYU. There will be a link in the show notes. And treat yourself or treat someone you love to something special. You deserve it. Now, let's get back to the second half of the show. Who do you call first? I'm going to do this in the form of some of those real life examples. All right, so that it gives you an idea. So see which of these sound most like your case, what's going on for you. Let's talk about the first one. And sadly, this is a really common one. So that's why I'm starting there. And that is the affair discovery. So you have found out somehow that your spouse is engaged in an extramarital affair or is having a relationship with someone outside of your relationship. So this person is in deep emotional trauma, and they are generally spiraling with questions, anger, and grief. Emotion is high. The ability to think is very low. That is not your fault. Betrayal is an awful experience to go through. It is a trauma, and it is not something you can pull back from easily. So I generally would recommend in this case, in the triage, that your first call should be to a therapist or a divorce coach, someone who is going to help you ground yourself emotionally before you make any big decisions. And that includes hiring an attorney. So here's what I often see is you find out your spouse is having an affair and you run out to hire the biggest, baddest bulldog attorney that you can find because you are angry and upset. And then as you start to get your emotions under control, you start to see that perhaps that attorney isn't the one for you, but they were hired at a time when your emotions called for that kind of attorney. So you will generally make better choices on your other team members if you are in a time of trauma, if you have the help of a therapist or a divorce coach as quickly as possible upon finding out about the affair. Now, the next case is the financial betrayal, and this one is pretty similar to the adulterous affair. There is not much difference in how your emotional system is going to react to any kind of betrayal. And a financial betrayal can be as bad, if not worse, because it has long-lasting financial repercussions beyond the moment in time of finding out your spouse is cheating. They're not just cheating on you by having a sexual relationship or a relationship with somebody else, but they also have hurt your family's financial future. So in that particular case, I'm not going to say don't get a divorce coach or therapist, but many times getting your financial expert or a divorce-focused CDFA in there, that is going to help you assess the scope of the issue, right? Remember when we talked about triage, we were talking about assessing. And they can also, where possible, help you cut off the bleeding, I'll call it. Help you get those credit cards closed, help you shut down the accounts that need to be shut down. Find out what the issues are before your spouse has the ability to hide all of the statements and all that. In this particular case, getting the financial expert working on the triage and immediate relief can be helpful. Then you're going to consult with your attorney to understand how this type of debt and how it was accrued is another element, how that might be treated in your state and the best way to proceed. And if there are any legal things that should be filed immediately. But getting your financial expert up to speed as quickly as possible can be critical. Now, that other case that I talked about was a blindsided stay-at-home parent. Also, sadly, not an uncommon situation. And this is generally, we still see many cases where we've had one parent who gets out of the workforce and stays at home for a number of years, raising children, caring for the home, contributes non-economically to the family, but they are not bringing in an income of their own. And so often they have no idea in that moment of being told that a divorce is happening. They have no idea what to do next. And I will tell you right now, for many people who are in this category, fear is the most predominant emotion. And it can be almost, honestly, almost paralyzing, because there's no ability usually for people to see a way to go out and instantly start earning enough money to give them the security of knowing that they'll be able to take care of themselves. So they feel very dependent on someone who is now trying to divorce them. And that can be difficult. So who's your first call there? I'm going to say again, a divorce coach and an attorney, depending on how sudden and aggressive the situation feels, right? I think a divorce coach is going to really help you get your feet under you and manage that fear. But you may have situations where your spouse, who's the income earner, is going out and doing aggressive things legally, draining bank accounts, shutting off your access to credit cards, doing things like that. If that is happening, you will also want to get to an attorney right away. Now, here's one good tip. Good divorce coaches are going to know the best attorneys to help you get to, that are going to help protect you, but aren't going to be the ones who run up the big bills or who are so overly aggressive that you take what's already a bad situation and you make it worse. So if you are feeling a great deal of fear, I think one of the first steps is that divorce coach to help you deal with that fear. But if there's a lot of urgency around actions being taken by your spouse, a good divorce attorney is also someone to get on speed dial here. If you have a little space to process, I encourage calling the coach first so that you can map the terrain. It may be done quickly, but if you can give yourself a breather of a week or two where you can get your feet under you, do some thinking through with your coach, get a strategy, and interview at least 3 attorneys. I always say to please talk to and consult with 3 attorneys before you make that decision. And then the last category that I'll cover here, because it's another one that we see so often, is that long-time thinker who's ready to act. So we know that statistics say people on average think between 4 and 7 years about divorce before they pull the trigger and decide to get a divorce. And generally, that is the woman in the relationship or the wife. We know that wives, more often than husbands, are the ones who file for divorce. It's over 70% often filed by the wife. Now, in same-sex marriages, that doesn't apply, but we still almost always will have, almost all cases of divorce, we'll have one party who's been thinking about it for a long time. They've been emotionally processing for years. They've been reaching out for information. They've been thinking about in the back of their head, what does divorce look like? So they've moved forward in the continuum emotionally and probably on their education about divorce. They're the opposite of that person who gets blindsided, right? So this person has some clarity, but now they don't know what process to pursue. They've probably done the research. They know that there's litigation, mediation, collaborative, sit down at the kitchen table. But here's the one thing they don't know. What is their spouse who they've just dropped the bomb on? What is their reaction going to be? So for this person, I say the first call should probably be a mediator or a coach to help explore options for how to move forward with intention, control, and so that you are moving in a way that doesn't unintentionally ramp up the emotion on the other side. There is going to be a higher level of emotion in your spouse that you have told you want to get a divorce, but you need to proceed in a way that tries to keep the equilibrium as even as possible. And I find that having a coach to help you work out that strategy and a mediator ready to go as a neutral who's going to support both of you in your process is generally a way that can help you move forward with that intention and control while your spouse works through some of the emotional content that they are probably feeling. That's the type of thinking that you need to do when you know divorce is in your future. It is strategic thinking. It is going out, finding out what professional band-aids you need for the injuries you have, and hiring those professionals in the order that you need them. You want to take the time to take a deep breath and think about which of these categories you fall into. And then as you triage that, explore the professional that is going to help you move forward in the best way. And I will say, if you don't know which of these categories you fall into, I'm going to say again that I have found, after being a divorce attorney and mediator for almost 35 years, that if you do not know who to hire first, or you do not know where to go first, go to a coach first. Find a good divorce coach. If you need to find one, listen, go through the archive of Divorce and Beyond. I've had some of the best divorce coaches in the country on this podcast. Kate Anthony, the coaches from Divorce Coaches Academy. I could go through such a long list here. All of those episodes are in the archive. I encourage you. These days, with divorce coaches working virtually, they can work with you from almost anywhere. Find the coach who's going to help you. Here's the other thing I want to leave you with for a moment. Avoid the too many voices trap, right? So in the early stages of divorce, one of the biggest mistakes people make is asking everyone for advice. So you'll go to your friend who had that messy divorce 10 years ago. You're going to talk to your neighbor who's like, you got to call my bulldog attorney. He's great. He's still fighting with my ex. Or, your cousin who's just trying to help, or your mom, or your best friend who's never liked him or her anyway. But too many voices can cause confusion. And divorce, I hope I've made it clear, is not a one-size-fits-all. And you need a clear, focused team of professionals who are trained to help you and your situation, your particular situation, your friend's divorce, your neighbor's divorce, your cousin's divorce, or thoughts on this are not your divorce. So be careful. And that is why I always say that if you need advice from somebody who is going to help you figure out what you need, that is one of the things a divorce coach excels at. All right. How do you find the right people? Here's what I recommend. I've already said one of them. Interview at least 3 attorneys and mediators before deciding on any of them, because chemistry and their communication style and feeling comfortable enough with them that you're going to be able to trust what they say to you, because they are going to, at least the attorney, be giving you advice. So I absolutely think you should not, many people make this mistake. They go in, they hire the first person they talk to because it made them feel better in that moment. You are at a time when you are not feeling good, and you go out and you hire the first person who makes you feel a little bit better. Well, that does not mean that that was the right person. So please interview at least, or consult with 3 attorneys and at least a couple of mediators if you're hiring mediator. Ask for referrals from trusted professionals. Your therapist, if that's the first person you go to, they may know a great coach or a lawyer. Your friend who went through divorce may have a good coach. The coach may have referrals to lawyers, as I always said. Ask people for those referrals, but don't hire anyone just based on that. You do need to talk to them. When you're talking to them, I want you to look out for red flags. Anyone who promises specific outcomes, encourages aggression from the start, or makes you feel small, that is a sign to walk away. That is a sign that that is not the professional for you. I promise you, you are at a time when your support team is going to be everything to help you get through this. And so make sure when you're putting people on that team, you're putting the team members that you want to work with. And check credentials. 2 of the, especially the credentials. I mean, obviously, an attorney has to be licensed to practice in a state. That's something. But if you're hiring a divorce coach, get one that is certified, right? Mediators, get one that has trained and done a lot of mediation in the family law arena, has done divorce mediation. This is what they do. If you're getting a financial professional, get a certified divorce financial analyst. They know the specific help that you need and the situations that you are facing as someone going through divorce. So do check those credentials. So as we close this out, I want you to remember that divorce is not a sprint. It's not even a marathon, although you'll hear many people say that. It's more like a strategic hike, and you can't see the entire trail right now. Again, you just need to take the first smart step, because right now you are standing at the starting line. And that might mean for you calling a coach, a lawyer, a financial professional, or a therapist today. The most important thing you can do is to do one thing today, and don't go through your divorce alone. But take the deep breath, do the triage review, make your decisions strategically and as calmly as you possibly can. And if that is hard, the go-to is always to get a divorce coach to help you to make the rest of the decisions. So one golden nugget for this episode, everyone. Divorce is not a DIY project. The first decision you make, which is who you're going to call, can shape everything that comes next. So think and choose carefully. Listeners, if this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need it right now. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, and please leave a review if you haven't already. It truly does help others find Divorce and Beyond. I'm Susan Guthrie, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for joining me today on the Divorce and Beyond podcast. I hope you found some information and inspiration to help you on this journey. Please join me every Monday at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for a new episode. And if you like the show, please take the time to subscribe and leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. You can also find more information on the website at divorceandbeyondpod.com, where you'll find links to the YouTube channel, transcripts of the episodes, and other bonus content. So I'll see you next week to help you move through your divorce and beyond.